Welcome back to another episode of the Fork This podcast. I'm really excited today because we are in the spirit of the Downs Distillery and I'm joined by Michael. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Nice to be here once again.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be exciting and I'm terrified of the tasting at the end because there's lots of products to get through. But before we jump into that, Michael, how did you start Spirit of the Downs?
So the actual business began in 2017. We, uh, I was in between work and had a passion for wine, all wines really. So Italian wines, French wines. And after doing a road trip down to Italy, I came back to the UK and just said to my wife that because of the reputation that English wine was gaining, we should go and have a taste of the local wineries. So we chose a random winery that I just liked the look of, which was Breaky Bottom, which is by Rodmell near Lewis, and spoke to Peter, the owner, who's a very charismatic wine grower, and we made an appointment to pop down and decided to try a number of his sparkling wines, which I must say were absolutely exquisite. Really surprised me after drinking champagne for many years and enjoying a bottle of fizz. I was really impressed with the quality of English sparkling wine, and that progressed. I started helping out with the harvest, so picking the grapes, and then we'd put the grapes into the press, and I think it was 2016 was the harvest. And as we emptied the press, I noticed that there was quite a few grapes that hadn't been popped. And I said to Peter, "Why why aren't you fully pressing the grapes?" He said, "Well, I don't want any bitterness to come through." So that meant that the grapes that came out the other end still retained a lot of juice. So I just said flippantly, after being in Italy the previous season, "Can I make a grappa out of that?" And Peter was like, "Yeah, give it a go." So I teamed up with the head winemaker, Angus Mackey, and we very much improvised uh, a setup that was very Heathcote, really rustic in the extreme. We did a small tester initially, which was a freezer full of grapes, and what came out the other end on a test still was really nice. So we ramped it up 2017 and did a run of 3 tanks that were German fiberglass 70s setup. They were very much at the end of their life, but they were available. We did a ferment with what remained, and within 4 weeks, we'd completed a fermentation using champagne yeast, water, and the grapes, and a bit of sugar, and that was the first release. It was ready for Christmas. We did 120 bottles, and yeah, it went really well.
It's amazing. Again, taking a waste product basically, right? Otherwise, this would have gone onto the field to kind of rot down and go back into the soil, or it might have been used to feed animals or something like that. But otherwise, that would have just been discarded, right? Those grapes.
Yeah,
That's
it
incredible.
it's it's a product that just usually gets dumped into a compost heap and is left and then spread on the vineyard the following year. But it has some negatives as well, because there are flies that are attracted to that can cause problems with the vine. So it's better to utilize that. And I think that because I run a solar company in the background, that sustainable angle, that constantly thinking about renewables and how we could reuse products, just kicked in and got us going on the journey.
This is going back to like 2017, you
Yeah.
mentioned then. So what's the build up to, I mean, the famous year that everyone always ends up talking about, but the build up towards the COVID year? And
Yeah.
then did that have any big impacts on your business?
Yeah, we were making good progress. Angus decided that it wasn't for him to be in the business, so it was very much myself on my own. And I always had an idea to make a Sussex brandy. I love brandy. I love cognac. And the thought of making a Sussex brandy, and I wasn't aware of any other brandies out there, was very attractive. So I started down that route. We had a few bumps in the road, shall we say, as we worked with a distiller in Sussex. Again, I was trying to work as locally as I could, using local grapes, producing locally with a local distiller. But we found to our cost that not all distillers are able to create spirits. They can use neutral grain spirit and produce their products by adding botanicals and creating gin, that type of thing. But creating it from base, from a fermentation that we had created, was a bit of a problem. And we found out with HMRC that the correct licenses were not in place. So effectively, that first batch of 120 bottles was illegal hooch.
Nice.
So that stalled plans, and that was part of the reason why Angus was like, I'm not in. So it took a while to get over that, but that we resolved that, and we found a way to produce our base spirit using our own ferments, and that led us into 2019, just as we were the year before COVID. And so we were making some good headway in terms of introducing it to local bars, restaurants, and retailers. I was very happy with the way that was progressing, but also talking to local cocktail bars. And we're getting some really good traction. And then all of a sudden, that just stopped with all the closure of restaurants, bars. So we had to look at another angle. So we started to do farmers markets. So that was the way that we kind of rode the wave. We still had a big hit. It delayed us by at least a couple of years from where we would have been otherwise. But the farmers markets was good fun, and we had quite an innovative way of giving people a taste. 'Cause obviously, you can't pour out into cups, and you can't hand people cups. So we put all of our spirits. We only had a few at that point. I think we had 4 different spirits, 2 grape spirits or vodkas, and 2 brandies. And the way that we would give people a tasting is to spray it on their finger, so that effectively they could atomize it and get an essence of what it smelled like, which was really good. And it also, by having a suck of the finger, they could get a taste of it as well. And I like that because, one, it meant that we were compliant with COVID, but secondly, it meant that people were not throwing away the remainder of my spirit that I'd poured them in a little tot. So it ticked the boxes, and people took it well, and understood why we were doing it, and that got us through working with the farmers market.
So talking about that, because you mentioned quite a few different products, obviously, that you've ended up with. So you were 4 back then. Your first ever batch then became, or sorry, maybe it wasn't the very first ever batch, but your first, I think, batch then became an awarded batch. Is that correct, or have I
Yeah,
got that wrong?
the first release, the 120, ended up with 5 bottles being confiscated by HMRC. But the first major batch, which actually turned out to be 1,400 bottles, 2 different batches of the same product, that was using Tickeridge, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier grapes, and we were amazed at the feedback that we got from the Great Taste Awards. We actually were awarded 3 stars. The judges called it exceptional and said it carries the alcohol so well it's positively dangerous. So it was great feedback. We also got a medal at International Wine and Spirits Challenge, so that was really well received. It really captured people's imagination. The only downside for me was that I called it a grape spirit. People don't know what a grape spirit is. So now we call all of our clear spirits grape vodka, which people can understand. They're familiar with it, and it's something that they know how to serve. Whereas the grape spirit, and that's probably why I've still got about 500 bottles of the 3-star award-winning spirit, because people see it in the shops and think, oh yeah, it's got some awards, but then don't know what
Don't
to
know
do.
what it is.
Yeah,
That's an interesting one, actually. I never thought about that side of how you actually present the product for people if they haven't. Even to be honest with you, for lots of things like brandies and other things, there's a probably an age or a time, I would say, where that was more popular. I'm not sure how popular it is now in comparison, but
yeah.
having something that's obviously more localized, I think that gives people a lot of incentive to try it at least and give that a go. But yeah, like you say, grape spirit doesn't tick any boxes in a cocktail book.
No, it's but the reality is that that grape spirit had a lovely, or has a great profile. It when it came out of when the ferment was strained off and we put it into the still, we had cherries, loads of cherries. It smelt like a heady Barolo in terms of the grape essence, and it just smelt wonderful. We put it through the still, and it came out like plum and dark berries. The cherries had gone, so you never quite know what's going to come out the other end. But the nice thing was we also had other components in the taste that were a little bit of spice, a little bit of aromatic. People also comment that it has white chocolate on it. So, you know, the depth of character and flavor that we got through in that first big release was excellent, and it makes amazing cocktails. We have quite a niche for people that like grappa, and 10% of the population love grappa, 90% will run a mile. But for that group that like grappa, and we've got Italian restaurants that have it as their English grappa,
Nice.
then it really works for them. But people drink it on its own, drink it straight from the freezer over ice. You could treat it like a gin with a light tonic, but I wouldn't go too much with that because you're trying to preserve, the essence of the spirit.
For most people, when you do mention grappa, their experience is usually being given I don't want to say a cheap and harsh grappa one day in an Italian restaurant or something like that, and having burned the back of their throats and thought, I'm never drinking grappa again. My dad loves it. We're from the south of France. He drinks it pretty much every end of a meal with friends or family and a big get together. And the bottle of grappa will always come out. So it's definitely a cultural thing as well. But
Yeah,
I guess in the UK, if it starts becoming more prevalent and more accessible, then more people are likely to keep trying it.
I think, like you say about people are interested in trying local, and it has quite a versatile profile because you can use it in many different ways. And we that initial release, we blended with neutral grain spirit to bring down the intensity. And that's one thing that I noticed with grappas, the intensity, it's in your face. I know it's a different process in terms of steam distilling. So, but it's quite aggressive. Whereas what we try and do is with all our spirits is to provide something that's quite soft, approachable, not too harsh. And that's a key thing with the Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier grape spirit, is that it's very easy to drink.
So we've talked a little bit about challenges, and you mentioned obviously COVID. We won't go back into that. And you've mentioned a little bit HMRC, which is always an interesting one. But is there any other challenges that you can think of that are really stuck out for you over those last, what is it been now, 8, 9 years?
Yeah, yeah, it's 8 years. Trying to find the right place to have the distillery was a challenge. I I, I was searching for about 2.5 years before we found the old winery at Bolney. Um, I wanted somewhere that would be reflective of the uh, products that we were making. I didn't want to be in an industrial unit. I didn't want to be somewhere that didn't really match the character of what we were doing in terms of well-made, small batch spirits. So we found this place, and it was a big investment to get it all up and running. HMRC, again, a lot of paperwork to get all of your licenses in order and have that inspection. That took took some time, but we got all of our distilling, rectifying, compounding licenses. We're a duty suspended warehouse, so we have everything that we need in order to work through. Um, I think so. Setting up took a lot of time, and that was a challenge. But we've done it now, and we're established. I think the key challenge with us is that we're not really supported as a section of the drinks industry. And what I mean by that is that the government has a very draconian taxation level for small batch spirit producers. So, to put it in perspective, we are the second highest taxed alcohol regime globally,
Wow.
with only Finland higher than us, which means that it's a challenge because our spirits our spirits vary from 20 £24 to £40 a bottle typically, and the majority of that is tax. Um, we would love to export, and we are in the process of talking about it. But the key thing is to try and make sure that you've got a successful domestic market. And we've just had another increase of 56 pence per bottle in tax. And I see the dynamics about having uh, health considerations at the heart of increasing tax on alcohol, but surely it's the supermarket entry level vodka for £11 a bottle that's the issue, and not a £35 bottle of grape spirit or vodka from a artisan producer. So I think if you look in the brewers, they've got small brewer relief, so they, for a certain level, they're able to get a reduced taxation, which means that they're more able to sell at a reasonable price and make a profit to try and build the business. So that would be that's a big challenge at the moment, especially the cost of living crisis. We we're not the essentials for most people,
Yeah.
so we have seen a drop in the amount of people going to farmers markets, the amount of money that people are spending. So that's a challenge. Uh, we just need to raise the profile of what we do, because the story, what we actually create, is great. It's just a matter of getting more people to understand it, because we could double our production very easily now that we've got everything in place here. And then we could spread the cost of the distillery over that increase in volume, which means we can reduce costs and grow the business with that extra funding.
It's always a challenge, isn't it? For especially for small businesses, is trying to find that just middle ground where you have a product that people can afford, that want to buy, and that can actually be something that helps you actually grow the business at the same time with margins. And I think for a lot of people, they probably don't actually realize just how much duty and tax there is on alcohol in general, let alone spirits as well, but even on wines as well. When people are sort of looking around the supermarkets trying to figure out how to buy a £5 bottle of wine, not realizing that by the time you pay for the duty, the
Yeah.
import, the bottle, the label, and a bit of marketing and shipping, you're probably buying a sort of a 65 pence, half or three quarters of a litre
Yeah.
of wine. Um, and I think that's something that's terrible. Like, people don't necessarily understand that. So they look at the final price, like you said. So you
Yeah.
compare it, apples for oranges in your supermarket. You go, well, there's a bottle there that's
Yeah.
normal vodka and it's only £11, so I'll have that. And I think that's a continuous educational issue as well to try and help people.
I think the variation, it we produce a vodka which we do in a 20 sil bottle, which uses the grapes from Dermot Sugrew's vineyard, Sugrew South Downs, which is on the Downs just near Ditchling Beacon. Wonderful vineyard. And what we're creating with that vodka, which is a 50-50 blend with our grape spirit and the neutral grain spirit that it enables us to call it a vodka, is amazing. You get grassiness on the nose, you get blueberry and licorice, followed by Madagascar vanilla. The difference in small batch production of grape spirit and vodka, or combined, it is just sensational. It Most people are used to vodka just not having a flavor, and what we're creating is amazing, and the flavors. So I do encourage people to try the local producers, because we're creating some amazing products that you just won't get in the supermarket.
We couldn't agree more. And in fact, actually, what annoys me about the supermarkets here in England compared to in France is in France, you find localized product produce, even from local farmers. They buy tomatoes from farmers that are nearby rather than trying to buy tomatoes from another continent to bring them in. And I think that's something that the UK doesn't do enough. I've heard that Waitrose are now have sort of an end cap sort of thing in Sussex that shows some of the products from Sussex. But I think that should be 10x what it is currently. It's madness to me that you can find things from the other side of the globe. But actually, if you go to supermarkets that are responsible for selling 85% of the food on people's tables, roughly, the top 4 or 5 brands in supermarkets don't care, no support whatsoever, and actually no access even to those local products.
Yeah, I think the ability to offer local products, both through supermarkets, but also through bars and restaurants. I know from my own experience that I probably spent more at farmers markets buying my household supplies than I actually sold in products. But I know that the quality's there, and you find some amazing producers of both meats, vegetables, wines, spirits. The farmers markets are just amazing, and the more opportunity to sell through the bigger supermarkets, the better. I think, unfortunately, the cost side of things, the ability to sell through Waitrose, well, you get paid 3 months after you ship goods, then you have a discounted 25% off your list price, which annoys the rest of your retailers. It's a double-edged sword. So I'm still not convinced about as working with some of the bigger retailers.
I think if they weren't so greedy for their shareholders and they actually helped out, they have more than enough money to be able to support local and actually bring localized produce into Sussex Waitroses, for example, like they're trying to do,
Yeah.
without having to bend over producers and and do it nastily, unfortunately. But okay, well, listen, that's the hard parts and the challenges that we
Sure.
have spoken about. Let's talk about some of the great projects that you have actually made. So it started off obviously with your 3-star Good Taste Awards, grape vodka.
Yeah.
And then what did you decide to do? Because I'm looking at the bar area now behind you,
Yeah.
and I can see a variety of labels. I know a couple of the products, but what did you do? What was the process from there? Then you started moving into different spirits or just different flavors.
Well, the brandy side was always something that I was intrigued by, and initially we worked with an ex cognac barrel, so we are using wood from aged cognac barrels, which would give us a Sussex version of a cognac. But I thought at that point, well, we're producing a Sussex product. Now, wouldn't it be great if we could use English oak rather than French oak? So I started to investigate into the oak side of things, specifically barrels. And I found that English oak actually goes halfway into France, and then French oak goes halfway into Germany. And so I thought, okay, let's give this a try. So I searched for a cooper that could make an English barrel, and I found Alistair Sims, who's based in North Yorkshire, who's the last master cooperer in Yorkshire, who produces barrels, English oak barrels, for wine producers and spirit producers. So I ordered a barrel uh, uh, from Alistair, and was wanted to see how it would come out. And the only downside with English oak is that it's 4 times the cost of a French barrel. So, I'd be paying €250 for a French oak barrel, new or used. and then I'll be paying £900 for a English oak barrel. But we got one, in. Um, Initially, it was supposed to be 100 liters, but it actually ended up as a 90-liter barrel because one of the staves broke when he was putting the barrel together. So we worked on that one, and our first batch that came out of the English oak uh, was relatively light because we had only had a limited time in the barrel. So we uh, we released it, and it had more floral notes, and it had uh, a little bit of honeysuckle coming through, a little bit of Madagascan vanilla, a bit of apple. It had some really nice soft notes coming through, as opposed to the more creme brulee, sultanas, and rich notes that you get with an ex cognac barrel. And so we split out into two different types of oak aging. So we started selling both, and we've really got a grip on the English oak now. The nice thing is using the smaller barrels means that if you have a 500-liter barrel and put your distillate into that barrel for a period of 5 years, you will get a nice aged brandy. If you use a 100-liter barrel for a year, you get the same aging. So we're able to accelerate the aging by using smaller barrels, which there's no degradation in character. The flavor profile is still well developed and real quality. So we've been able to get the brandies, the English oak brandies, to market a lot quicker by having these smaller barrels. And it's really worked for us because I don't know of any other brandy producer or spirits producer that's actually using English oak. I know of some wine producers that are using English oak, but I think the cost is quite prohibitive for a lot of people. But we've won several awards now. I love the subtlety of the English oak. It just is soft. So when people say I don't like brandy, I say, hold on, let me give you a taste of our English brandy. And we've had one that's just won Silver of the World Brandy Awards. That uses the grapes from Sugrue South Downs, which is lovely. You get stewed apple notes, then you get Madagascan vanilla. It's my favourite brandy. And then we've got other brandies which are from other vineyards, such as the grapes from Breaky Bottom, grapes from Tickeridge, grapes from Plumpton, and they all vary quite dramatically. So that's the other thing that I like about the oak aging and the fact that we have individual vintage brandies, because they all have their own character, and that's nice because people can try many different brandies, and they're not the same taste. They're very varied in terms of their taste profile.
Amazing. Well, we've talked so much about it. Shall we have a taste?
Yes.
What are we going to be tasting then?
So we'll start with the Spirit of the Downs 3-star award-winning.
This one?
That's the one.
Okay.
This is the first batch that we launched as a full product line, and this one uses the grapes from Tickeridge Vineyard. It's 2019, and this was launched in 2020. It won 3 stars at the Great Taste Awards and a medal at International Wine and Spirits Challenge. This works really well on its own, or you can have it with as part of a cocktail, or as with a light tonic. I wouldn't have too heavy a tonic with this, just purely because it would overtake the spirit. But on the nose, you'll get a nice dark berries and plum coming through. You can definitely tell that it's grape based.
Smells fantastic, and it doesn't have the strong alcohol. Sometimes you take that sniff and you just get the alcohol,
Yeah.
and at that point you're kind of put off, almost like, oh, this is going to be bad. This doesn't have that. You can smell every bit of the flavor rather than.
There's no harshness to it.
Oh, that's very good. Ooh, that might just be more me rather than the actual drink, but that's fantastic. It isn't overpowering.
No, you get that chocolatey white chocolate, the silkiness that comes through it as well.
Oh, that's very good. So I wouldn't be one to normally drink stronger spirits, especially not sort of
Yeah,
neat. Um, but I can definitely feel that would be perfect at the end of a meal as well, right? That
yeah,
would be make a nice digestive
yes,
for us. That's really good.
yeah. It's it over the time in the bottle as well. It does condition it and soften it. So it's been in the bottle now for about 3 years.
So how long did that take you to actually make? Just so that people get an understanding. So from the moment you grab the
Yep.
grapes from the 2017, 16 harvest.
Yes.
So
So
from that point,
so typically, what we do is take the harvest in September or October, as and when the wine producers are ready to pick, and then we'll put the pumice into one of the steel containers behind me. We'll add champagne yeast, water, sugar, because they've taken some of the juice out to produce the wine. So we want to replace that. And then what we would do is we will let that sit. Sometimes the fermentation will occur. If it's in September, we can get plus 16 degrees in the distillery. But if it's too cold, which it was last year, then we don't get a fermentation. It doesn't convert the sugar into alcohol, and so we have to wait until the following year. So what will happen there is May, June, July time, it will go through, it will kickstart again. If it hasn't gone through, then we will add more yeast to it and get that to complete fermentation. And we, around August time, September time, we will then strain off and then we'll distill it. And then it will either be bottled or in this instance, it'll be blended with neutral grain spirit to make a vodka, or it will be placed into a barrel, such as one of these. And then that can take another couple of years to complete. So as a minimum, it's about 11 months to just create our clear spirits, and obviously longer with the oak aging, depending upon what oak we're using, how many runs the barrels have already had. We typically get 4 runs out of a barrel, and then we'll send them back up to Yorkshire and get them reshaved, and then we don't char them. We heat them so that we get the resin out, but we don't char our barrels. So
I believe I'm right in saying though as well, some producers and they actually swap out barrels. So whiskey barrels end up being used further down the line as part of winemaking, and then so on and so forth. And then actually some of the winemaking ones end up going back over, and there's a whole ecosystem of this. I remember talking
yeah,
to someone about this in France years ago and thinking, Jesus, I missed this. Like people were literally wanting to order, a bourbon cask that had been in the USA somewhere
yeah.
so that they could try it for a French red wine in the south of France. And I'm thinking, this is mad.
Yeah. The variations on oak. At the moment, I'm in the process of getting a PX barrel, and I also want a tawny port barrel. So I love tawny port. So that's a bit of a personal interest there. But I mean, we've got a Jack Daniel's barrel, which has got Pinot Noir in it. We've
Okay.
got a Heaven Hills, which is another bourbon distillery, which has Sauvignon Blanc in it. And we have an American oak barrel, white oak, which had English Chardonnay in it for a few months. And then it had an English whiskey in it for 2 weeks. So we don't quite know what's going to happen on that one. But yeah, the variations down to oak are fascinating. And we've got to be careful, because if you leave the spirit in too long, especially with the smaller barrels, they can take a different taste, a plasticky taste, which you then have to leave in the barrel for many years
Yeah.
in order to get it back. So we've got to carefully taste these barrels and make sure test where they are in terms of their development.
It's a really interesting thing, and again, I don't think people realize, like you said earlier, 11 months up until, if you wanted to be in barrel for 2 years or more, that's a minimum 3 year, not just investment, time, effort, everything else, money, obviously, for everything that's happened into that point, but actually for the taste profile, right? Like
Yeah,
there's not really much you can do at that point either. There's not, you can quickly add a little bit of, or just
yeah,
change turn the heat up or whatever it might be. So it is really a case of now that it's there, you're just, I'm guessing, tasting every periodically, sort of every 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, and then sort of making a decision
yeah.
as to what happens next. Is that right?
It can be as quickly as a couple of weeks,
Oh, wow.
because some of the smaller barrels, especially, you can end up with a quicker development. So if you compare us to, say, Scotch whiskey, it's a lot warmer in the south. So the aging of the liquids is a lot quicker here as opposed to in the Highlands. So yeah, we do see a lot of development, and will be interesting to see how it compares, because we're in the process of making a whiskey as well. So it'll be a single malt Sussex whiskey.
Nice.
So it'll be interesting to see how that develops, because we've got to keep it 3 years minimum
Wow.
in the barrels before we can call it a whiskey. So that's more of a long term project. But yeah,
Nice.
the barrels are a fun element. We're looking at sweet chestnut. We're looking at acacia as well,
Oh, wow.
because there's some very interesting woods that are out there that we can make into barrels that are 20 liters upwards to 500 liters.
Yeah. That's incredible. Right. Okay. So I'm going to move this one along. We're going to keep them moving round.
So this is our vintage 2021 English aged Sussex brandy, so English oak. This was first run. This uses the grapes from Dermot Sugrew's South Downs, Mount Harry near Lewis, and this won silver at the World Brandy Awards. I did this at 43% alcohol rather than 40, which is the standard. Now, the reason I've done this is that I just wanted to make something a bit special, um, because I would say Dermot's probably the best winemaker in the UK. And so I wanted to present a spirit that preserved the fruit so that we didn't age it too long in the English oak. But it's a special brandy. We've only got about 55 bottles of this left as well. So that's the joys of doing vintage spirits, is that when they're done, they're done. So we got 13 different SKUs at the moment, but we add new ones every couple of months, and likewise we'll lose them every couple of months.
It's an interesting thing because you mentioned the word vintage there, which a lot of people don't recognize as to what that actually means and the difference. But it basically means that it's from one particular crop, right? It's
Yes.
one particular picking of grapes, and it's not been mixed with anything else. And I think that's the key piece that a lot of people don't realize for a lot of wines and other produce as well, for alcohols.
Yeah.
Mass batch produced, anything that needs to be big volumes can't actually do that vintage, because obviously can't continuously keep producing the same thing year in, year out.
It is a challenge, because having a vintage selection means that we then have to, if we want to put it in for awards, you put it in for an award, which isn't cheap, and you have to get new labels. So this is small batch production. So we'll do a variation in numbers, anything from 350 bottles to um, 650. Typically, we can double up if we've got enough. If we've got two tanks that we're running, then we can double that up. But that's the run that we're doing, and it's all handmade. It's not a industrial process, which you get with some of the bigger distillers, but there'll be individual vineyards, individual grapes, individual season, so that they're all their own character.
Yeah, that smells very nice. That smells almost sweeter, I would say, than the last
Yeah.
one.
it has more sweetness. It has the stewed apples. It reminds me a bit like a Calvados.
Yeah, caramelized kind of caramelly kind of flavor. That's what I'm smelling.
And then the Madagascar vanilla, it's not your full-on American oak vanilla. It's just a lovely drop.
Oh, that is fantastic.
It's really nice.
That is, yeah. And again, not someone that would drink heavy alcohols or hard alcohols in the evenings and stuff, but that just as a sipper is a beautiful drink. Mm.
It just stays with you a long time on the palate, and it once you've had it, it's with you for a while.
That's very good. So you said that you ended up with 43%
Mm.
as opposed to 40. How hard is that to make that change and to make that
It's
kind
very easy. With the still that we have, which is a fruit still, we typically start to produce spirits once we've with this distilling. You have three distinct sections. So you have the heads, which is your methylated spirits, which is 68 degrees upwards, and that you'll get pear drops. It's like methylated spirits, as you would with decorating. So you get that, and then it transitions into hearts. So you get the more sweet, the more floral, the more appley notes that come through, and that's the key part that we want. And then you get the tails, which is you get more farmyardy, more kind of straw and mushroomy. They're quite. It can be quite dank and not as fresh as the middle part. So we kind of discard the two outer parts, but that central section is what we go for, and that varies from 90% volume down to typically 50% volume, but the total is about 74% volume. So we have that, and then we put it into the barrels at around 65%, because that's the optimum level for dealing with the angel share. So as the as the barrels age the liquid, you will lose a percentage through the pores in the wood, and so that will bring it down to low 60s. And then you can take a view on it. I mean, we typically bring down to 40%, but it can be 43. We just use distilled water to bring it down to that level. We have one that's cask strength, which is 61%.
We're not trying that one today.
We're not trying.
I have to drive after this.
Yeah, but it was quite funny that one. Tagore Ramatar, who's our commercial director, he's a founder of the English Whiskey Guild. I gave him a little sample out of the barrel and said, "Look, try this and see what you think." And when I came back, he drank it all. I was like, that was a sample. And he said, "You need to bottle it now." I was like, "Okay." I said, "Yeah, fine." He said, "Do it limited edition, just do 100 and go with the 40% for the balance." We also use that brandy for the Boozy Barista coffee liqueur. So we had three different ways in which we were utilizing it. But it's quite an interesting one, that 61%, because we did our research, and you can get brandies that are higher than that, but they're not grape based. So we believe that it is the world's strongest brandy, grape based brandy. So
if anyone knows of any that are slightly stronger, please let us know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
otherwise,
we've purposely been a bit vague on the claims in case of
just in case it
legal
turns
action.
out there is somebody else.
But it's a very different mouthfeel. As the percentage goes up, you get because it's lighter with alcohol, you just get this kind of different mouthfeel. It kind of melts on the tongue, and then the intensity of that 61% is so much more. But it's a pleasant sensation. Whereas if someone said to me, "I'm going to give you a 61% alcohol product," I'd be like, "Well,"
Yeah.
but it actually works, and the feedback that we've had from it is
Been
great.
great. That's good to hear. So what are we on to next then?
So-
After the Sussex brandy aged in the English oak.
So this one is our French oak aged brandy, and this one uses the grapes from Breaky Bottom Vineyard,
Okay.
who originally was the inspiration for our distillery. So this one is uses Chardonnay. We tend to use Chardonnay because traditionally it's been a good grape for aging. So we use Chardonnay for this. This won a star at the Great Taste Awards. It also won a silver at the World Brandy Awards. This is aged with French oak. We've used 3 different oaks, done some final conditioning on it. And this is very much like your, I would say, cellar reserve cognac. So this is more like a traditional brandy that you would expect.
I'm torn, you see. I'm half English, half French. So I've got the English oak, the French oak. I'm trying to work out which one is better.
We
Do you
tend
have a
to
preference?
we tend to find I prefer the English.
Okay.
We tend to find the French one is more popular with whiskey drinkers or
Okay.
people that like rum, and you can serve this with a ginger ale, and
nice.
it works really well. But yeah, I mean this is what you would expect from an aged French brandy.
Again, sweet notes on the, as soon as you sniff it, it doesn't have that powerful alcohol.
Well, I did a side by side comparison with a Remy Martin because I used to drink that
Yep.
years ago, and I was in my loft. I'd only had it open a couple of years ago, and so I poured like for like. It was actually the Breaky Bottom English version of this, and I went for the Remy, and it was like, and it was a bit of a punch in the face in terms of the it was very alcoholic. I drank it. I thought, yeah, I like the taste profile, but then I did a like for like comparison with the English age from Breaky Bottom, and it was just so much smoother. And I thought, yeah, we're doing some good,
you're doing something good there.
things. So creme brulee, sultanas, you'll get sandalwood and pine as well as vanilla and oak on the nose.
Oh,
It's got a lot going on, isn't it?
a lot going on. Super smooth. No kind of hit of the kind of alcohol. Again, probably from years of drinking too much Calvados in places like Normandy with my dad, and over the years, or bad brandies being served at the end of a meal, and it just sort of, or bad grappas like we spoke about earlier. That idea that actually these kind of alcohols just burn the back of your throat, go down, you think, "Ugh, right, it's done. I don't want to drink that again." But actually, that's completely different. And I can imagine actually that would taste phenomenal as part of a cocktail or as part of a mix with something like a ginger ale or something like that, because it just, it's full, it's rounded, it's got lots going on. And again, for me, it's got a real sweet note to it as well. These aren't, these haven't kind of burned my tongue or maybe kind of go like, ooh, that's a bit much. That's really nice.
Yeah, it works really well with a champagne cocktail.
If my wife's listening, that's going to cost me another bottle of this and a bottle of champagne. I'm impressed. Okay. And when you say champagne, obviously it would go very well with an English sparkling wine. Of course.
Exactly. We're at the White Horses in Rottingdean. We're in the Explorer bar with the main producer together with Madam Jennifer. It's a 3-month period where we just have cocktails from the 2 distilleries. And this one is served with Bolney bubbles.
Nice.
As an English version.
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay, so on to the last one.
Yeah.
I'll move that to the side.
Thank you. So this is not exactly a spirit, it's a liqueur. But this has really kind of opened up people's eyes to the versatility of brandy. So this one is our Boozy Barista coffee liqueur. Now, the nice thing about this is that we're using 2-star bean smitten coffee. They're a roastery in East Sussex.
Yeah.
The nice thing was when we first won the awards for the first one, we were at the Great Taste Awards, and we were going for the Golden Fork Awards,
Okay.
which is the best of the best from the southeast with the rest of the country. And they had 3 star for their coffee beans. So we said that we potentially do something together. And so I had a chat with Darren, the owner of Bean Smitten, and he had this mix of Indonesian, Central America, and Brazilian coffee beans. Unfortunately, we can't have English coffee, so we accept that they've done the roasting, and we've taken that from abroad. But the nice thing is the coffee had a nuttiness and a nice chocolatey notes coming through. So we merged that with our latest French brandy, which I would say is very much like an elegant VSOP brandy.
Okay.
That's our latest one from using Tickeridge grapes. I'm really proud of that because I knew exactly the taste profile that I wanted in terms of our latest brandy. We've only got 350 bottles of it, or a lot less now, because we used a big portion for our Boozy Barista, but then we've also got the 61% that came from it as well. So this has got that blended, and it's British sugar cane syrup as well. So we take British sugar, and then which has the addition of molasses, and then we make that into a syrup, and then we blend it together. But the nice thing about this is it's great on its own. It's great as over ice or a part of an espresso martini. The the viscosity and the mouthfeel is just wonderful. And this is the only coffee liqueur that uses brandy as its base rather than neutral grain spirit. Now,
Okay.
neutral grain spirit has no taste. So this is adding character and flavour to the coffee liqueur. And I put it in for a couple of awards this year. I'm hopeful that we'll get some results.
Touch wood.
Yeah,
As they
touch wood
say.
indeed. But yeah, have a nose. I like it because it's got balance. It's not too sweet. It's got the cold brew coffee that comes in, but they all work in harmony.
Oh,
It just goes down so easily.
that would go well over an ice cream, like a
Yep.
proper traditional vanilla ice cream or something with just a drizzle of that would be.
Well, we're talking with a few restaurants and bars, and this with a chocolate brownie, vanilla ice cream poured over the top. It's sensational.
Absolutely, that is incredible. That's dangerous. That
It's only 20%.
doesn't matter. It's dangerous because that is delicious and it's got that sweet note at the end of it. You get the flavor of the coffee, but not in like a harsh way.
Yeah.
And you finish with that sweet note that makes you go, I could have a little bit more of that. That'd be quite nice. You could easily order a second.
The nice thing is it's introducing brandy to people that wouldn't drink brandy.
Yeah.
Even people that don't like coffee, I give them a taste of this and they're like, that's really
Delicious.
nice.
Yeah.
So we're crossing quite a few boundaries, and the reception that we've had with this has been really good. It's working really well in terms of raising our profile, and it's nice because we can do this consistently. I'm just about to use the following season of Tickeridge distillate to create another brandy, which will then be used for this.
Oh, fantastic. Well, as part of this, obviously, and we each time we do a tasting, we bring another product over with us. So today we've also got some of the amazing Brighton salami from the guys at Curing Rebels, which I think you already know as well.
Yep,
Um,
great producer. We are in the process of offering platters with our tastings for this summer, and this will be centre stage with some local cheeses. So yeah, we're a great fan of Rebel.
I think we would love to know when you're going to be doing that, and we'll be down here straight away to come and enjoy both. I think it's genuinely I've been amazed by the quality and innovation in local produce by people who genuinely care,
Yep.
who really are trying to do something great. And having met Will and Rich the other day, I'm blown away. Like I'd already tried their products, they were great, but actually meeting them, hearing their story, hearing again people doing things that potentially could take a year before you even get to see whether you've got a good product or a bad product at the end of it. But that commitment and that dedication is incredible. So this is their Brighton salami, which is the fennel one,
Yeah.
and it's incredible. But help yourself.
I, I,
And
I have tasted this before, and we've had corporate days here where we've done local nibbles and served this. I just think that, like you say, the quality, the care and attention, and the investment in time with something, because they're so innovative, not knowing whether it's going to come out okay. But everything I've tasted from them is absolutely bang on.
but every time, like trying that the other day with them, the fennel, there's that kind of little bit of a, well, I feel like it's like a citrusy bit that comes through. You get that amazing flavor, hand carved pieces of the fat that have gone into this. Yeah, just one incredible product. And again, goes probably not very well with a boozy barista, but I'm sure we could find a good, great vodka that would that, that would go with that, or if not, one of your champagne
I
cocktails.
tell you what, I know exactly the right one. This is the Pinot Noir that we had from Sugu South Downs. Now, the reason I've gone for this is that it has that licorice note, so you get the grassiness on the nose. So I really do
With
think
fennel.
with the fennel, with the pepper, I just
Cheers, by the way.
cheers.
Thank you very much for having us.
It's a pleasure. It's just a wonderful thing. We call it the walker's friend.
Especially on a cold day. So for me, again, the word vodka brings negative connotations. That's
Yeah.
again for me personally. I've got friends that love their high-end vodkas, but for me, this does not smell in any way like the profile of a vodka
No.
would. And when I see great vodka, I'm almost scared of thinking like of a flavored Smirnoff that's
Yes.
come off a factory. This isn't that in any way, shape, or form.
So we call this a sipping vodka. The same way that you'd have a sipping mezcal or
Yeah.
tequila, just purely because it's got viscosity to it, it's got a body to it. You get the grassiness on the nose, you get the blueberry and the licorice, but it's it just it's playing in the on the palate. It has a wonderful profile.
Licorice is a weird thing to. I don't actually know how you describe this because it's not just the flavor of licorice; it's almost the tongue feel of licorice. And you've eaten like something that's nice, a proper real licorice, not sort of your assets cheap and mass produced, but a real piece of licorice.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives that effect on my tongue anyway. And like just sitting there, I get that through this.
And it's very strange because when I distilled this, I was just quite I couldn't get my head round it. It was so different in terms of how it came out, and instantly when we tried it, it was like that's got to be on its own,
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a sipping vodka. My positioning for this, if I've had a couple of pints and don't want any more volume, I'll have a little nip of this, and that's my evening done.
That's perfect. And I'm going to double check, but I do think it goes very well with the Brighton salami.
I think it's a perfect marriage.
Absolutely.
Thanks for bringing those in.
Thank the guys at Curing Rebels. That's the idea. Everyone gets something from somewhere else. That was the idea. Michael, thank you so much for this. If anyone wants to find out more, if they want to buy your products, what's the best thing for them to do to get in touch or to connect?
So the spirit of the downs.co.uk. We do tours on Saturdays at 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock for an hour. And typically we'll taste between 8 or 9 different spirits. We have corporate events as well. So if people want to have their staff along, treat them and meet the producer, then we're open to that as well. We're just before Bolney entrance. Just come along. We do drop-in tastings as well. So if people are passing, just come in. We're typically here in the afternoon most days, and come and say hello.
Michael, thank you very much.